Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Seychelle Van Poole.
And I'm Sarah Reynolds.
I'm Wendy Papazan.
And I'm Via Williams. Today's episode is things that are going cattywampus. Yes, you heard us right. Cattywampus. And Wendy just gave us a whole history of the word. But basically, here's the story. It's things that are going askew in our lives, because that is the definition of cattywampus. And what happened is we came to a recording session and no one had written anything because we are so busy and so overwhelmed, a little bit stressed, and there's a whole bunch of different reasons for it. So we decided we were just going to walk through what's stressing us out right now. Like, what are we going through? How are we talking about it? How are we processing it? How are we tackling it? Is that right, ladies? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although you did say a little bit stressed, and I think that's a
okay. I was trying to make us sound better. Yeah.
Well, because I actually had the same thought, because I was thinking, I think that's every episode. Like when we come, we all have those things going on.
I know.
That shows how off we are right now. Like how cattywampus we are right now.
Totally.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Well, and I would say that underlying all of it is this feeling of we're all emerging from our pandemic era. There's a lot of things that are changing. We're all in an incredibly insane real estate market. And those two things kind of underlie everything, right? And in addition to that, we've got other stuff going on. So Sarah, why don't you start? Why don't you tell us what's going on with you?
Well, I am extremely overwhelmed, both personally and, of course, work-wise. We've had amazing growth in our business, which is awesome. And my husband sat me down 2 nights ago, and he was reading The Leaders That Last book, and he said, it dawned on me that your business has grown tremendously in the last couple of years, and you have not redefined your role in a long time. And part of why you're feeling overwhelmed is you're now doing 5 other jobs again, based on the size of the business. And he's like, you have to redefine your role, or this is not sustainable. And so where I am is
and Claire, I don't mean to interrupt you, Sarah, but just to tell our listeners where you were 2.5 years ago, maybe with what your team looked like, what your sales production was, and then what it looks like now. So as a reference point.
Okay. So, 2 years ago, so we were looking at, 2019. So 2 years ago, we did, about 9.8 million in gross commission income. That was about, 500. No, that was the year we did 750 families served. I don't do volume as much. That's
okay.
But those are the numbers. Then right now we're pacing at 25 million gross commission income. We're in multiple markets that we weren't in 2 years ago. So there's multiple businesses in addition to our current business. And right now we're pacing about 2,000 families served. Yeah, in my roles still the same.
Almost triple.
Yeah. So triple. It's been quite it's exciting, but it is right now I would say it's not worth it how I'm feeling, to be honest, because of how overwhelmed and lack of sleep and everything I have going on. So I have a big thing I'm doing this weekend. I'm going to take some white space time, and I'm just going to write down what I love about what I do right now. And that's going to be my new job description, what I don't like about what I do. And I'm going to leverage and hire the right who's for the things I don't like. So that's going on this weekend to try to get out of this sort of spiral I'm in.
Well, kudos
this
to
is
you.
such an aha to me too, Sarah, because I feel like that's what I'm going through too. And I think a lot of us go through that, where one day you look up and you're like, why am I so stressed? It's the same, same role, haven't changed. But then you realize it should be a new role.
Well, the thing, and sometimes it's like people, our husbands know us so well, right? And he was like, it feels like you are not willing to admit you need help, which is so crazy because we go through that sort of in the beginning of building a team, like this anxiety over it. And then you go through all those things again, the same sort of like emotions, the same. And he's like, you got it. And he pinned it as a little bit of pride, which was like eye-opening, but I think he was right. The more I thought about it, like, you need more help. Like, you cannot run this kind of size of company by yourself. And I'm not doing it by myself, to be very clear. I have not done this growth by myself, but I need a higher level leadership across the board. So thank you.
Well, and I would ask you, how many people report to you directly?
Too many. Yeah. So that's what we talked about.
Do you have,
but how many?
Like,
what's the number?
What does that look like?
19.
Yeah.
And
so you should probably have 5.
No, I don't disagree. I don't agree.
So my standard is Jesus. He had 12. Okay. But I'm not Jesus, clearly. So I say 10 to 11 is my,
that's Seychelles. Seychelles is actually Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. But the big thing is, like, and what my leadership team keeps calling me out on is, like, a desire to have a relationship with all 160 people is impossible. Like, a deep relationship. And I keep fighting it. I keep fighting those levels because I want to keep the relationships. And it's like, well, you're not doing a good job with those relationships to begin with.
Well,
at this point,
but I do think it's important that we have relationships with what I call the grandkids. So I do think it's important that we have key relationships with the people that report to the people that direct report to us, like grandkids, and then a little bit of great grandkids. Because what happens is, if suddenly your direct report leaders, leave, then you're kind of left stranded. Like, you have to be at least 2 levels down in your relationships. And I would argue that, Wendy, I didn't mean to be like, no. But I think that it's just,
I'm crying over here.
I know you're crying. And so I'm like softening. But the thing is, 5 is too, it's an ivory tower answer. And the reality is no organization I know, it's more like 10 or 15 that I think is more realistic.
What I already, I led our leadership book club and had about 25 team members come this last Wednesday. And I think the key here, that's what I want to do. I want to do more of that, which is spending time masterminding and teaching and help, being with all of my people, not just, but it's all the one-on-ones. I think what Wendy is saying is, who is coming to me for everything? And that's a lot.
Yeah.
19 is too many, for sure.
19 is way too many.
And 5 is ideal. You can have the great grandkids, I think about Jay at Keller Williams International. And when he jumped into the vice president of learning role, he actually did have about 15 direct reports. And he said, you know what, that's not going to work for me. So he took a leader in each of those 2 teams. And those are the people that reported to him. And then, he still has a relationship with everyone underneath, but that's just how he operates better. He's like, I can't be, otherwise all I'm doing is managing those relationships. And if you're someone who, honestly, Via, you're probably very skilled at it. If you're not a person who's skilled at managing those interpersonal relationships like that, bouncing them around, then you do need to have less people report to you.
Well, I think that we're both right. I think we're actually probably talking about the same thing. Here's where I jumped on it quickly, though. Here's where I think the caution is that I get nervous about is I get really nervous. The longer we can stay horizontal, the better. The minute you start going vertical in your organization, it becomes bureaucratic. You're getting filtered information. We've all witnessed it.
And I did. I have
turnover last year.
I have for a long
that's exactly
time.
What happened?
Yeah. I have for as long as possible. It's too long. I'm at a breaking.
I get that too.
So
I get that.
Yeah, I have to do some things.
Of course. So yeah.
I did the opposite though, and I went vertical too quickly, and then lost relationships with a lot of my key people because I allowed the person in between me and them to do that, and that was to Via's cautionary tale. I lost the trust of the organization below that because the person in between wasn't succeeding at as high a level as they needed to. Yeah. And that was actually how I had kind of my big, massive team failure last year. And, and it's on me. I own that. I'm not shying away from the fact that it was my failure as a leader that caused some of that. But yeah, you're right. I think you thinking that through that though, Sarah, on how can I be more purposeful in teaching and engaging in other ways will create a nice buffer between the two, kind of hills and valleys, if you will.
What's going cattywampus with you, Say?
I feel like I probably have been the most conservative of our empire building crew over the last year with COVID, where we have like almost been sheltered in place for a year. And I've been leading my team exclusively virtually, hiring virtually, schooling virtually, everything. Like I have not been on a plane or really been in any sort of a group setting in a year. And I'm like, we're now fully vaccinated. Our daughter's still going to finish out the school virtually because at this point we're like in it to win it. But we're like, I'm literally crawling out of my COVID shell. Like, I feel like I have been like Hermit the Crab and I am coming out of my COVID shell. And it's like, I'm having to relearn how to set schedules. I'm having to relearn how to set boundaries. Like being in public is like really weird. I feel like I'm just like this different human kind of coming out. And I'm like having to recalibrate everything right now. And so kind of back to where we were last year.
Are you going like are you doing steps or?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely baby steps. I'm not just that like girl that goes to, away from home to college for the first time and is like, wow, like that's not what's happening over here.
I was going to say that could be very scary.
No. But I mean, even just, like this is an example, like we had, with my dad's Parkinson's, we just had to be so freaking careful. And so like we actually had a play date at a friend's house yesterday inside without masks on, like for the first time.
Awesome.
And like that to me is like college crazy right now.
Have you gone to like restaurants or anything yet?
No.
Because if you're vaccinated, didn't they say Pfizer is like 100% now?
It's in the 90s for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of that, like to what Sarah was saying though, it's like slowly, like kind of unpeeling the onion back. Like, and the other thing too is like our kids still aren't vaccinated, so I'm also kind of mindful of that too. If we have a lot of like neurological and like underlying DNA stuff in our family, it's like, how much do I really want to test those systems on my kid? So, and I know a lot of people listening to this are going to be like, wow, Seychelle, you're kind of like a weirdo. So that's cool. But,
no, I don't think you're a weirdo. Yeah. I think that a lot of us that are kind of chargers and hard drivers haven't really processed what we've even gone through in the last year because we've been doing what we always do, which is go, produce, make it happen. Yeah. And, Gus, my 16-year-old son, so in Texas, you can get vaccinated when you're 16 now. And I got a last minute appointment for him. And when I was there with him, I just started to cry. I'm going to cry now. Yeah. I didn't even realize all that emotion that was there inside me around that as a mom. I mean, I'm going to cry. It's all there. We've all been so scared for the people in our lives.
Is the crying coming from a sense of like relief?
I made everybody cry.
I know.
Is it coming from a sense of
No, it was relief. And it's like I didn't even realize how scared you are for the people in your life. And I know that's been so real for you, Seychelle, and it's been, so real for me too, because my stepmom, she was diagnosed with COVID, and basically we flew out there because the doctor said she was going to die, and my dad's has been in a wheelchair and all alone, and like all of those feelings around the people that we care so much about are just so there, and so some of that's unpacking that. I think we almost need like a cultural therapist,
like a reintegration therapist
to address it. A reintegration therapist, because it's very real, and I haven't processed it that much, Yeah.
Well, I think this last year, like everybody's in a different place. I think that was something we talked about before we started recording. Everyone's in a different place. And so it's like, I know I have some team members that are so ready to be back in person 5 days a week. I have other team members who are still not ready to leave their home. And so as a leader, I think I still feel that like underlying just everyone's in a different place, and how do you lead and grow and cast the vision and manage, even though I don't love that word manage, but I think manage to that. And then, on top of that, just like having a 7-year-old and like a marriage and wealth building and a lake house that's under construction and just like, in Michigan when you're in Texas and all the things. It just like Wendy and I were texting this morning and she was like, how are you? And I was like, I'm in it. And she was like, specifically what? And I was like, all of it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't
Lots
have
of subsequent
area.
Text messages. Yeah.
In the mire.
I was like, do you want a journal? I can send you my journal notes. But no, I am. The one thing I will say that I have gotten back into is reclaiming my body, which, like just getting back into making sure I'm running at least 2 miles a day again has been sort of my I actually get to listen to us on our podcast. And
I love that
on part of my run. But it's, that for me has been sort of my reclaiming a sense of myself again for the first time in a year. And that really has been in the last 3 weeks. So that feels good.
I've often found in times where I've gotten fit or lost weight that it's a control thing, that it feels like there are times where that's the only thing I can control.
Yes.
When everything around me is just crazy, that I feel in control when I can do that,
Speaking of someone who has really gone to great lengths to do that, though, in the last year, Via, you really have done that. So how are you right now?
Yeah, I mean, my health journey, it's never going to be a straight line up or down. Yeah. It's always going to kind of be a wavy one. So I lost 70 pounds, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and I really kept it off well. I mean, I kept it off for a few years, and then I got injured and had vertebrae surgery, which isn't an excuse, by the way, but it is what the bottom line is. It is kind of what caused me to get out of those habits. And then, I started a new role, kind of changed my life around in 2018, gained 20. And then I gained another 20. And then COVID happened. The next thing I know, I'm plus 50 of the 70. And then COVID happens and I gain the last 20 to hit me exactly to the same weight that I was before I lost the weight.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that.
Well, because it was gradual. See, that's the thing, It was kind of gradually, and then suddenly I was there.
And suddenly.
And then, so then, when we were kind of pulling out of that first COVID thing and we were kind of going into the fall where it kind of was the first little mini reopen or whatever, I started 75 hard. And that's when I lost 31 pounds. It was pretty crazy. And then I started round 2 of 75 hard in January. And bottom line is I've lost 40 of the 70. But the reality is it's probably bounced up a little bit because I've noticed over the last month, I'm kind of just falling back again. So, and that's kind of what I do. And I tend to take little breathers and then I'll kind of go the next round, right? I'll kind of go hard. But so I don't think I'm in a good place actually right now with my health, but I don't think it's permanent.
Well, change is hard. And there are so many habits that we adopted as a result of the pandemic, even just putting on your mask when you're going to the store. Yeah. So we've spent the last year, coming up with these new habits. Like, what do we give someone an elbow bump instead of shaking their hand? What do we do? And so now we have to go back and do all of that again. And change is so hard. 70% of the world, if you study the DISC, is a high S. And their number one fear is change. And so, and we're none of us are high S's. And that's the world around us right now. And we've got people on our team that are like that. And so we're feeling some of that energy and angst and trying to figure out what the new habits are. And for a lot of us, we're like Via, I know for me, we got into some terrible habits, health-wise this past year. Basically eating a bar of chocolate before we went to bed, not walking the dog as much, and a lot of stress, not sleeping, all of those things. And so Jay and I are also on we started a diet, and it's been super hard. I mean, these last 2 weeks we started a keto type diet, and my body is not liking it,
Jay, the first 2 weeks, first 2 weeks are the hardest of that.
Jay texted me, goes, man, this keto flu is no joke, right? And I said, Jay, you don't want to hear this. It took 3 weeks and 4 days for me to get out of that when I did it. That's a long time. But when I did, it was great.
Of course, Jay lost 10 pounds the first.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. Yeah.
Let's not talk about it.
Including 4 pounds of fat. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. It's not fair.
Okay. Yeah.
The first week?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Men are amazing.
Men are amazing.
It just falls off of them. It's just like it melts off. You're like, do you know what do we have to do to get that?
Have you guys ever done something like that together before, Wendy? A diet?
No, we've never done that before. Okay. And we gained a lot of muscle during this past year because we've been pumping iron a lot. So I'm worried that we're going to lose some of that, but it's just, we just have to get into it, just a different habit now.
That's the thing. It's all, we've all created so many different habits. Like, I mean, we created the habit of not going to church.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And for us, we were in church for 36 years. And George and I had to sit down and be like, this is an awful habit that we've created in our family. For us, this is a big deal. And I mean, it is a habit. We need to, I think that using that word is good for our mindset, because then it helps us. We've all had to break habits, right? Or create new ones. And so I think using that word is important, because I think it's realization of it and then putting the steps in place to fix it.
Can I ask a question? What habits did you create, for any of you all, which habits did you create during this past year that you want to keep?
Honestly, Zoom meetings. I know that gets a bad rap right now. Everybody kind of wants to reach through their device and punch me in the throat for that. But, I actually think that that's been a game changer, to not just to take away this driving everywhere and this just cumbersome, sorry to say it, in-person process. I still miss meeting people in person. It's not that I want that to go away, but I mean, 75% of my meetings can be Zoom now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good one.
I miss the hugs from meetings, but I actually think we're far more effective on Zoom.
Well, speaking of Zoom, like recording this podcast this way. Remember when we first started, we were talking about how often we were going to have to fly to Austin.
Like once a month or whatever.
Once a month. Yeah.
Like this habit of doing the podcast on Fridays in our homes or in our offices. That's for sure one we're keeping. So
for sure.
Another one that I love that I learned from Via was just instead of doing some Zooms, doing some conference calls and taking the dog on a long walk while I do it, and being able to do those for exercise, like the walk and meet at the same time, whether it's in person or on the phone.
Walk and talk.
The walk and talk.
I love a walk and talk. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually it's trying to figuring out like who's on your team, who prefers to work virtually, who wants to work in person. And it's been interesting. I've been hiring for a new position on our team, and the candidates feel very strongly one way or the other. And so it's almost something that we're probably going to have to take into consideration moving forward, because there's going to be some opportunities that are okay with remote, and some people that some opportunities that they have to be there in person. And you're going to get candidates who gravitate towards both. And so that's going to be a question that you're going to have to ask, because a lot more companies are going to be a lot more remote.
And I just I'm on sort of probably the other end of say on things. Right. Which I think is good, because that shows our people, like that's the same thing. Like we have, my dad labeled green, yellow, red, and then making sure you're leading each group based on sort of who they are, which helped me when he shared that with me. But it's also okay to
explain that, Sarah. Explain that.
Yeah, that's a good explanation.
So my dad's a pastor of a pretty large church and a remarkable leader. And he shared with me that for the church members, what he did is he came up with a sort of labeling system of green are people that are wanting to not are wanting to see people in person, have been wanting the whole time, are sort of on the like other end. Some of them not believing things that the media is saying, or there's all kinds of extremes there as well. And then yellow or sort of in between that, and then red are like, say would be in red of like stay home, shelter in place. And so what he did was he put all of the people, and then he made sure that he was leading them based on who they were.
Oh, I love that.
I think that was powerful for me, because when in the beginning, I was leading people all on red. I was treating our whole organization,
everyone,
everyone. In the green, we're having we're having a lot of problems that I was not seeing.
Yeah.
And so that was really eye opening for me. But now I don't remember what was the point of me sharing that. I'm so sorry.
Well, I think you and I are on different ends of that. Like as far as where we have been personally, like you've been almost in the office the whole time.
You know, I'm just speaking to the leaders here that are listening. It's okay to like say part of the right of being the leader is it's your company. Like, so it's also okay. There are differences, but I would encourage people, you know, it works the way we say it works. So if you do want in person, then you just put that in the ad and you make sure it's like you have permission to do that. And I think that is not what people are hearing right now. And I think people do need to hear like Say has permission to lead the way that she wants her company led. And I have permission to lead the way that I want my company led. And if the people don't, then if you feel like that's the best thing for your organization, then make the hard decision and move forward with it. Yes, you're understanding, but at the same time, the best thing for your organization is a confident leader that is guiding the ship. Yeah. That's the best thing for the organization. Yeah. And so make sure that you're doing that. So
yeah, well, and I guess my point with that is that there are going to be some candidates who don't realize that they're one way or the other. And so it's your job when you're interviewing them to really like put that as
adding that in as a question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To help them self-discover that. Yeah.
You know, so going back really quick to the red, yellow, green, you know, I read an article that just reminded me that, our events are probably going to look like that as we come back to in-person, you know, conventions and events, that there might even be color coding on name tags so that, you know, if it's red, like, you know, stay 6 feet away type of a thing. If it's yellow, you know, you're going to do an elbow bump, you know, whatever that is. If it's green, you can walk up and shake their hand and hug them. And I think that's, you know, actually kind of cool, especially for introverts.
Well, that's, well, or people that just haven't liked being close to people to be with, like pre-COVID.
It's like, this is a dream come true.
Like, this is kind of good.
Yeah. I mean, we've done all of our team events that way. A lot of them outside, but we still have name tags and we had different signals. And so and I said, you got to be respectful of each person and make sure that you're looking there first before like crossing a line or, you know, and I think that is important for sure. That's for sure going to happen with events.
So, you know, Wendy, I'm curious because we were talking about health and stuff, but is that what is the most cattywampus with you right now? Like, what's going on with you?
Well, that's kind of underlying everything, which is I just don't feel great these last couple weeks because of this new diet, and that's causing me not to sleep. And you guys know I'm that's my number one domino.
That's your one thing.
I'm not like you guys. I gotta sleep, and so that's been tough. And then, you know, Jay's dad has some health stuff going on, which is kind of scary. My team is in a growth mode, which is always exciting. It's exciting. And I love where we've come in the last year, but it's always more work when there's new people and we're growing and things like that. And then honestly, for me, it's this kind of underlying restlessness about, you know, I feel like this is going to sound terrible, but in a way, this past year for me has been like captivity. You know, I'm like the mountain lion that's been feeling caged, and I've just suppressed all that, and it's all fine and it's okay. And I've got this like burgeoning sense of like, I need to get out of the cage right now. And I'm feeling it in such a way. And this is just me like being real vulnerable right here. You know, I'm almost like want to completely get out of everything. You know, I'm having, you know, and you guys all feel this when you're running your teams where you're like, I'm done. This is too much. I don't like this anymore. I don't like anything that I'm doing. And it's not that. And I'm working with my coach to really figure that out, because the way I enjoy my team is I come back, I do the work, I get to travel, I get to speak, I get to get out during the day, I get to meet people, and I haven't been doing that. And so it's like a whole year of that is compressed. And so I'm feeling like that complete restlessness, and I just want to do new stuff. And I can't right now because I've got to focus on my team. So there's just a lot of like inner conflict, and it's like I hate to like whinge about it, because a lot of people have a lot of like real serious problems, but I think probably other people are feeling that way too,
Oh, I think so.
I think it's just a matter of where you are. I don't think there's right or wrong. I think it's just a matter of where you are. And that's okay to, as you beautifully say all the time, we give you full permission to be where you are right now. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of us that are high drivers and entrepreneurs, that when you said caged, right, in captivity, that so resonated with me of like, I have felt trapped for the last year, and I have been growing a company despite that feeling, and our team has been growing, and it's this strange feeling where you have all this growth happening and you're trying to figure out how to manage it in the middle of it. And I think we're starting to all of a sudden turn around and realize there's all these emotions that we haven't ever given ourselves permission to feel.
Well, you can't see me, but I'm crying again. So there you go.
Well, I just have to say, vulnerability looks beautiful on Wendy Papasan. Seeing your heart right now is amazing. And we fully give you permission to be free. Take some time and go do what you want to do. And you have done a phenomenal job leading over the last year. Phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And watching your growth,
not just your team, but like the
I'm ugly crying. I'm ugly crying.
Yeah, it's time for a break, Wendy. Yeah. It's time. When you hit your limit, and it's okay that you have you've not only, just to emphasize what these gals have said, you've not just led your team, you've led us. Yeah. You've led the dolls. We, our company Amplify. We just kind of peaked at this huge experience where we hired an executive director. And the come down from that, and you decide to do a massive
did that.
diet.
Just to be
Wendy
clear,
did
amazing. We did hire, but Wendy is who followed that long step process that we've taught on hiring, which is a lot of work. And just having permission to be free, I think allows for us not to also make decisions in the moment too, but other than the decision to go do what you want for a period of time. And then recircle back and maybe do like me. We can be doing our job descriptions together again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Well, this was an awesome off the cuff episode, ladies. And, I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad we just kind of recorded what was going on in our lives. It was unscripted, unfiltered, right? And this is almost, I would say, the most like someone was eavesdropping on us episode we've ever done. I mean, this is just how we talk. I mean, this could be that, but just to kind of go back a little bit, I love what Sarah said about, hey, my role has to evolve as my company and my world has evolved, and just taking a look at that. And I think that's a whole episode that I'd like to propose us doing. I think that's great. I love, Seychelle and Wendy's raw talk about, coming out of COVID quarantine, basically, and what that feels like, what it feels like to literally come out of your cage, and reemerge into society. I think we're all feeling it to some degree. I love what Sarah and her dad are doing with the red, yellow, and green. And it's just like that reframeworks for me. Everyone's kind of in one of those color codes really with COVID. And so I love being purposeful about, okay, what's my approach with each one? Because I'm not so sure I am purposeful about each of those. So I think that's really, really great.
Yeah, you made one last good point too that I'll throw into the wrap, which is we all are feeling like we want something that we can take control of right now.
Yeah.
And for many of us, it's our bodies, it's our schedules, health, right? And so, I appreciate you sharing your journey with that too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's to me about setting new habits in this new world that we're in, and what does it look like? And we're all kind of trying to feel our way a little bit. It's definitely feels like transition time, and like we're waiting with anticipation for what it's all going to look like. Right. So once again, thank you all of our listeners for listening and supporting us on Empire Building. And we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.